What's up, YouTube? Your boy ChasmRift here, and today I got ourselves kind of like a Collinsville regional recap. I was attempting to make a vlog, but yeah, recording issues. There was no sound, but I still plan on just giving my thoughts and opinions and going over the entire experience being down there for Collinsville for the 3 days. So if you guys are looking forward to that, it should be coming around pretty soon. Just give me some time. Give me some time. At the end of the video, I'll explain why it's taking me some time to get that ready. This right here is just really kind of going over the format for these tournaments and kind of how I played. So like, if you just want to hear everything at the end about my personal performance, you can kind of skip this video. Personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal, but yeah, just want to give you guys a fair warning about that. Otherwise, about to go in here and talk about some Pokemon and the different formats. So I still get asked this question a lot when I go out to these type of events, and for those who don't understand, I'm going to break it down one last time. For Pokemon, in the video game championships, it's broken down into a tournament style as format. So for those who don't know, there are many different levels of these tournaments. There are 5 different levels. Of course, you have the World Championships, and right under that you have the International Championships. Under that you have the Regionals, which I just went to. You have a Mid-Season Showdown, which is under that. Then you have the Premier Challenge. The Premier Challenge and the Mid-Season Showdowns are typically called the locals, because they're gonna happen like at card shops or places that are usually local to people who live within a general area. I can't guarantee that it's gonna be in every town or whatnot, because that's based on the number of judges and who has a venue to hold it at. But that's typically how it goes for the video game championship side of things. There's the equivalent for that for TCG, but I'm not too familiar, so I'm just not gonna touch on that. Typically at the local scene, you'll see less people compete than you would at a regional or the international championships, and because of that, you're gonna see there's less point allocation. For those who understand, for 4 out of the 5 tournaments, besides Worlds doesn't really count, for 4 of these tournaments, you will receive what's called championship points. You gain championship points, and you need 400 at the very minimum to receive an invite to go to the World Championships. So you go to these type of events, you compete. Depending on how you place, you'll get championship points. The Premier Challenge gives out the least amount of points, so typically you should expect there not to be that many people compared to a mid-season, and from mid-season you shouldn't compare that. You should see less people than a regional, etc., because of the point allocation. So what you're seeing right here in this graphic I got posted up for you guys is, for the championship points, you see right next to it is a kicker. The kicker represents the number of people that needs to be participating for you to reach those points. So if we look at something that's common, like let's say 9th through 16th place, you will receive 6 points. The only reason you can get those 6 points is if 48 people competed. So if 48 people did not compete, you will not get any points, even if you place 9th or 16th place. At regionals I just went to, they listed it as a 3-day event, but in reality it's actually 2 days for the actual tournament. For the first day, they have a bunch of side events and whatnot, and I competed in one of those. And one of the side events I competed in was a Premier Challenge they had on Friday night. There I went 3-2, and surprisingly enough, I top cut it by taking 7th place. So I got eliminated first round in top cut. It was a revenge match I had against my second seed opponent. They beat me in a 3-game set, and I lost. So for that, I was in 5th through 8th place, so I got 8 championship points for that, because at least 24 people competed in that tournament. The style of format it goes is, it kind of varies for the Premier Challenge and the Mid-Season Showdown. It varies by the TO, how they're feeling, and various formats. So sometimes it'll either be just best of 1 and then top cut is best of 3. Sometimes it will be best of 3 throughout the entire event. It usually depends on the TO, how they're feeling. It could be a time constraint, it could be not that many people are competing. Number of rounds as well is also affected by the number of people who are competing. So there's different factors that should go in. Usually they'll let you know on the Pokemon website where you can find these events and whatnot. However, but typically for a top cut, you're gonna play in the best of 3 format, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The number of rounds, like I said, it varies by the number of people competing or the TO's rules going into that event and whatnot. And really, you shouldn't expect like prizes besides just the championship points. That's the only consistent thing you should expect out of all of these events, from a Premier Challenge all the way up to the International Championships. Regionals and Internats, they do give out prizes, but those are much bigger events, so yeah, they will give out prizes like money or cards and things like that. The smaller ones, again, depends on the organizer and if they have something they want to give out or not. So yeah, we competed at Premier Challenge on Friday. Saturday was the actual day one of Pokemon Regionals, where everybody competed. Sunday was for those who competed and made top cut. They competed on Sunday, and then there was also a mid-season showdown going down on Sunday for those who weren't in top cut. They could compete there. I did not compete on Sunday because it was Series 3. That's when the new rule set just kicked in, and I felt like I wasn't ready, so I just opted not to play. I just watched top cut and called it a day. More people competed in the mid-season. It was about 80ish something people versus like the 48 to 50 who competed in my Premier Challenge. So even at the regional level, more people competed at the mid-season than the Premier Challenge, even though it was on 2 completely different days. For those who are wondering how all this works, you compete in what's called Swiss rounds. The number of rounds you compete, as I said, depends on the number of people who are competing. Competing at the local level, you may play 4, 5, 6, sometimes more rounds than that. Competing at a regional is expected to be about 8 to 10 rounds you may compete in, and so on and so forth. Hey guys, I forgot to mention this during the one-take recording involving just the format for Swiss rounds. What I forgot to mention was that for Swiss rounds, you're typically paired with people of similar skill based on the metrics of the game. So we're told that, like, hey, your round 1 opponent's going to be completely randomized. You'll know what their level of skill is going to be. They could be really good, they could be a beginner, etc. We will never know before it comes to round 1 because everybody is 0-0 in tournament. After that, depending on how you play, you'll be playing against people of the same record. So if you won round 1 and you're 1-0, you'll play against somebody round 2 who's also 1-0. If you lose, you'll go 0-1, play against people 0-1. Just wanted to mention that because someone may think like, oh, if I go 2-5 in round 7, and then by round 8 you gotta play against Wolf Glick who's 6-1. You know, like that's not what's gonna happen when it comes to the pairings. However, speaking of that person who may have went 2-5, there may be some rare instances where you'll play people who aren't the same record. So we'll say someone who's 2-5 may play somebody who's 3-4, or somebody who went 1-6. In those instances, if you're playing somebody who's, if you're 2-5, play somebody who's 3-4, that means that by the computer metrics, you're actually the top seeded 2-5 player out of all the other 2-5 players, and you're playing against the lowest seeded 3-4 player, or vice versa. If you're playing 1-6, that means you're the lowest seeded 2-5 player playing against the top seeded 1-6 player. Just wanted to point this out before, instead of putting it on the screen, because I know a lot of you wouldn't read this, and some of you may use this as like a potential flaw within Swiss and how the format goes. Want to throw it out there. So yeah, back to hearing me talk about the format and whatnot. So the way it works after that is, depending on how you do, will be your record, and depending on how you're placed, is based on your opponent's win percentage, or what people like to call their resistance. The resistance is your opponent's percentage. So we'll take my performance at regionals. I went 4-5, and I placed 190 out of 369 people. I was placed like this because I went 4-5, and they based it off of my opponent's win percentage. So if I hypothetically went 4-5, and I had opponents who finished off as 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, maybe somebody DQ'd, and I got a W that way. If those are the opponents I played, for the most part, they all did bad. My resistance is gonna be pretty bad versus somebody who went 4-5 and they had to go through Vietnam just to get their placing. And I feel like mine was just like that. I had at least 2 opponents who made it within the top 64. One of them actually took 25th place, which we'll get back to in a minute. But at least 2 of them made it up there. I believe I had a 3rd opponent that also made top 64. But my resistance is much stronger than somebody who all their opponents finished less than 4-5. So that's kind of how they do the placement there. Overall, I like the format. I enjoy playing like this. It does encourage you to build up your stamina. It encourages you to be strong mentally, because you do have to keep going. Throughout the 9 rounds, after round 3, they gave us a lunch break, which was much needed. We needed the hour break, and from there on we came back and we had to compete again. So let me just go over like the pros and cons of everything I just went down. So the pros, so I'm gonna mix some comparisons to other tournaments, other formats, other events I competed at. So don't be offended if I say something and you like, I don't agree with that, or man, how dare you attack the way they do things from what I like, because this is just an opinion. Going into this tournament, there's 9 rounds to play. I like that a lot. Doesn't matter how you finish. You could go 0-3 to start the day off. You still get to play all 9 rounds. if you so choose. If you want to drop out, you could. Personally, I don't recommend it because you already paid money to travel and be there. Might as well stick it through to the end. So you can still compete. I like that a lot because for some people that may be the morale boost they're looking for. Some people may just want to look for results and know what they got to work on and compare and contrast in the future if they go to another event and things of that nature. Some people it's just a good way to build up stamina for future events they may go to. I like that a lot. When it came to like me with fighting games and whatnot, you could travel all the way to Evo, you could travel all the way to these majors and whatnot. And the downside would be you register, you could go 0-2. Everybody starts in winner's bracket. You lose round 1, fall in the losers, lose in round 1 of losers bracket, you're done. Like that's it for you in your tournament run for that video game you trained for over a year in, or whatnot. Yeah, it puts more emphasis on the stakes when it comes to playing in that format. But personally, I'm not a big fan of that because you could just have a bad day. You could have a slow start going on, and of course that's not the organizer's fault. But the fact that you're able to keep playing, win or lose, for 9 rounds of Pokemon, I like that a lot. It also encourages the fact that, like, let's say you start at 0-2, maybe, personally I think this is unlikely, but let's say you lose to a top player round 1 and you lose to somebody else who's really good in round 2, and you start 0-2. In theory, you can still finish out 7-2 in top cut, depending on how well your resistance is. So I do like that a lot. It still encourages people to continue and play, because depending on how the tournament goes, you can still make it. This is way better than, like I said, tournament formats from like fighting games and other events. The fact they gave us a lunch break was a godsend. I hear that in Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! They have you play 10 rounds, you get no lunch break, which I think is inhumane for people competing at an event like this. We're walking around, there's a ton of people, you're exhausting a lot of mental and physical energy just to compete, only to be told that, yeah, 10 rounds, no lunch break. And I hear from Yu-Gi-Oh! I can't confirm this for Magic, but I hear from Yu-Gi-Oh! That, yeah, for YCS and regionals and things like that, you don't get any money. I hear that someone won nationals, and all they got was cards. Of course, the trip is paid for in the future, but again, you have to win nationals for that. And the PS4 Pro. I don't like that at all. I know the innuendo was like, oh, hey, you know, they can take the cards, they can sell them, same for the PS4 and get money that way. Just give the guy a check, you know, because a lot of things can happen. You know, if you don't want to pay them and you just want to give them, like, external currency, I think that's really lazy. A lot of things can happen. You know, that guy could be given cards, like someone could steal those cards from him, like those packs of cards from him. He can misplace them. They could be damaged while he's trying to travel home, or the value of the cards could just plummet the next day. Like, and of course, Konami and all these other companies, they don't care about that because that's not their problem. But I really don't like that at all. You know, a lot of things can happen in that regard. Versus if you gave somebody a check and they got robbed, they just inform like, hey, someone stole the check. Okay, it's maybe a new one. You could direct deposit them to check if you are afraid of people, you know, trying to scheme you. There's a lot of options you have right there on the prize side of things. I hear that TCG has better pricing than VGC, which I mean it's fair. There's more people who play TCG, as well as they got to put more money and effort into it, in my opinion, than we do. Because for us, just buy the game, buy the console, and that's it. That's all we really need in theory. For them, they gotta buy many different sets of cards from many different series and build their decks that way. So I'm fine with them having better pricing and whatnot. It did suck that for all of us who competed and we didn't top cut, we got absolutely nothing. I like to see that change. Now, what I mentioned earlier was that one of my opponents was somebody I played round 4 against right after the lunch break. Funny enough, we had lunch together. I told them I hope they pair us up so we can have our revenge match. I lost our revenge match, but he ended up going 7-2 and he finished at number 25. And someone else I know from the Chicago area finished at number 17. Top cut was 16. So out of 369 people, only 16 people could top cut, meaning that only 4% of the tournament is able to be in the day 2 tournament. I say that's pretty unacceptable, and I feel like they should change that, especially when the event is that big. I actually feel bad for my friend because I feel like because of how I played, I hurt their resistance, meaning that they were ranked lower than some of the other people. A lot of us admit that, like, yeah, they should change that up because, hey, there's 2 things they could do. They could say, like, hey, one, you know, if there's more than 200 people, we're going to open up top 8 to 32 or 64 or something like that. Or B, you know, if more than 16 people, so let's say 17 through 32, let's say at least 17 people have gone 7-2, open up the top cut to the 7-2 record. Or if more than 32 people, so 33 and up, have hit 7-2. Open it up to 64. You're gonna have some people who made it in going 6-3, but that's fine. From an actual skill perspective, you're telling me the 17th place finish can not possibly do well in the top cut if they were in 16th seed. You're telling me that, like Aaron Traylor, he missed out of top 16 because of his resistance. He needed one of his opponents to win one more match and he would have made top 16 in theory. He had the 7-2 record. He won Dallas Regionals, the last major regional in America, and he missed out on top cut this time because of something else out of his control. We just feel that, like, well, there will be no system that'll be perfect because there's going to be human error. There's going to be some type of degree that's going on that will restrict people from truly showing off their skill value worth in these type of tournaments. But we really do like this, where hey, we play a bunch of rounds and we'll tally up the scores from there. We just feel that, like, myself and a bunch of others, we feel that, like, hey, you should open up the bracket to more people if the results say that, hey, they hit the prerequisite, which is typically 7-2, 6-3 for a lot of these tournaments. I say just let them make it in, no problem. The only issue I do know is that it involves scheduling for their streams. So I do know for top 16, they did not stream the first round. They started streaming at top 8. So I get from a scheduling perspective for their regional streams, that could cause a problem. I just say, if that's the case, push the stream back an hour if it's up in the top 32, or have the guys come in and play an hour earlier. If it's top 64, push the stream back 2 hours, have them play 2 hours earlier, or best case scenario, have them come in, play an hour earlier than usual, and have the stream pushed back an hour later than usual. Solution fixed. I mean, of course, there's a lot that goes into that, so I can't, say everything, but that's just how I feel right there. Overall, I enjoyed myself. I like the format. I hope this is very informative to a lot of you guys. But yeah, my big gripe is just I would like to see more inclusion for a top cut than what we have right now. But that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching the video. The next video is going to be coming up. Hopefully you guys like that. Don't shoot the messenger if the format isn't as ideal as you guys hope it will be. As of right now, I am currently working 30 hours this week. I have homework I have to catch up on. I also have 2 exams, so be patient, please. And yeah, thank you. Well, guys, I'm about to get out of here. It's felt open. I guess I could close them. So bye. I guess the question of the day is, do you guys watch tournaments or not? Maybe. I don't care what game it is. Just can you answer that question?